Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Harshida.
Yes, sir.
You are based in Thiruvananthapuram now?
No, sir. I'm in Coimbatore right now.
Coimbatore right now. Okay. You're working there?
No, sir. Right now I'm preparing entirely for UPSC. I did my coaching from Trivandrum, but now I'm here in Coimbatore and back in Coimbatore.
Okay, very good. Briefly introduce yourself.
Good morning, sir. I'm HARSHIDAA S NAIR. I was born in the Palakkad district of Kerala, after which I was brought up in Coimbatore. I've done my entire schooling from Coimbatore, after which I went on to do my graduation in chemical engineering from NIT Trichy. And I graduated in 2023, after which I have been preparing for UPSC. This is my second attempt and my first interview.
And what are your hobbies?
So my hobbies include singing Carnatic music, cooking, and I'm also interested in learning about Indian handloom sarees.
Very good. Great hobbies.
Thank you, sir.
Srikanth sir?
Yes, sir. Harshida, you're a chemical engineer
Yes, sir.
and preparing for civil services.
Yes, sir.
Carnatic music singer.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How this Carnatic music singing is different from Hindustan classical?
Sir, first of all, the origins of both these classical musics is different. In Hindustani, we see a lot of influence from the Persian, Afghani traditions, and it is also far more secular than Carnatic music. Whereas Carnatic music evolved and it diversified from the Indian classical music system during the Bhakti system, Bhakti movement, and hence Carnatic music is temple centric and it is more devotional in nature. Now, talking about the integrities in Carnatic music, we generally stick to the rules, and the composer's composition is recreated over generations and it is not modified much. Whereas in Hindustani, we have a lot of leeway for creativity, and the renditions are based on ragas, and the singers take a lot of liberty in delivering their Kalpana style singing. So these are the basic differences that I could recall, sir.
Now, famous Karnataka music singers, your name?
Sir, my favorite would be MS Subbulakshmi Amma and Balamurali Krishnan, sir. And in current times, I would say Arna Saira ma'am and S. Soumya ma'am.
Good. Cooking is also your...
Yes, sir. It is another hobby of mine.
Another hobby. What type of cooking? Kerala style and Tamil Nadu?
Sir, I try both, and I'm also interested in experimenting other international cuisines as well. I just picked it up during COVID time when I had a lot of free time.
Yeah, COVID helped in developing habit.
Yes, sir.
Another hobby also. Yeah, yes, good. Any Coimbatore is also famous for any special recipes?
Yes, sir. In Coimbatore, one of the most household famous recipes would be Arasim Parup Sadam, which is very similar to the North Indian khichdi, where we cook rice and dal together with just some basic spices like jeera, red chilies, etc., pepper, etc. And now talking about non-veg, I would say Pallipalayam chicken is one famous dish from Coimbatore.
Yeah. The Coimbatore is a famous industrial town of Tamil Nadu.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. With recent tariffs coming into effect, any adverse thing has happened in Coimbatore's industries?
Yes, sir. Coimbatore's industrial sector has been hit by the US tariffs that has been imposed on us, especially the textile sector, because almost 40% of India's ready-made textiles was being exported to US, but now that has been entirely hit, and that is seen even in Coimbatore. Apart from that, even our gold exports have been hit because Coimbatore is a major gold jewelry manufacturer. We manufacture about 10% of India's gold jewelry. Even that export has been hit. And apart from that, we also see a reduce in auto components export. And I think also our exports in manufacturing goods like wet grinders, where we specialize, even those exports, I think they've been hit, sir.
Okay. Father is a professor of tourism development.
My mother is a professor of tourism.
Mother.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, mother. And how do you look at the tourism development efforts in Tamil Nadu? with especially Coimbatore?
Yes, sir. Recent times we have been seeing some improvements, but I would say there is a lot of scope for improvement in Coimbatore's tourism sector specifically because earlier the tourist attraction only went to places like Ooty, whereas now we see that places like Pollachi within Coimbatore they have been specializing in tourism sector, especially village-based nature retreat tourism concept, where Pollachi is evolving as a new nature retreat center. And also, since Coimbatore is surrounded by the Nilgiri Hills, we can also focus more on environmental tourism and other sustainable tourism options like that. We have a lot more scope to do so, but only recently these places have been picking up.
Yeah. Isha Yoga Center.
Yes, sir. Isha Yoga Center is one famous spot in Coimbatore. I think it's famous throughout India.
Yeah.
Especially during the Shivratri time, we see a lot of celebrities come down to Coimbatore. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And sometimes we hear allegations, not recently, long back, regarding Isha Yoga Center.
Yes, sir.
What are those?
Sir, I'm not exactly aware of the allegations, and I also believe that we have not been able to prove those allegations because, as far as what I could remember, the allegations was about how the strict rules that the monks in the center had to follow, and there were some parents of these monks who came and complained, saying that our kids were taken without our consent, and now they've become monks. I think that was the allegation, but I think we were not able to entirely prove these allegations, and none of those monks came up to actually testify any coercion. So I'm not really aware of the existing scenario, sir. But in recent times, I've not been hearing any allegations as such. So I think the issue has been settled.
Yeah. Yeah. US-China recent relations. Okay.
Yes, sir.
The US went ahead initially with the tariffs. Now it is softening its stand.
Yes, sir.
Why? What is the reason?
Sir, yes, sir. As you said, recently there has been growing closeness between US and China, and it's also quite concerning for India because after the recent Trump and Xi Jinping meeting, there has also been a reduction in US tariff on China. So I think the major reason would be that US has realized its dependence on China, and it especially in sectors like the rare earths and semiconductors, etc., where US is dependent on China because when China enforced a ban on selling rare earth magnets to US companies started coercing the US administration to actually ease their stand on China. I think this realization of US's dependence on China is probably the major reason why US has softened its stance on China.
Okay. What is the Venezuela's issue recently? America is pressing Venezuelan government.
Yes, sir. America has been deploying a lot of its US Navy troops in the Caribbean Sea, and it has been coercing the Venezuelan government to take a strong stance against the illegal drug trade that is happening between Venezuela and America. However, this is what US says that it is fighting narco terrorism. However, I believe that it's not entirely just narco terrorism, but there is a lot of politics involved in it as well. US is invariably trying to change. The domestic administration in Venezuela. It is trying for a regime change, and I think that is one major reason why US is unnecessarily imposing such restrictions on Venezuela specifically.
Okay. Okay. Your subject is political science and
Yes, sir.
yeah. What is a social contract theory in political science?
Sir, in social contract theory, we say that the state came into existence because the people came together and they decided to give up their rights to the state so that the state can protect their right to life, property, and liberty.
Okay. How is it different from realism?
Sir, realism is a concept in international relations where we say that we deal with the relations between nations is not based on ideology, rather just based on national interest, and nations do as much as they can to secure their national interest and to secure power. It's a theory in realism, whereas social contract theory is a theory about the origin of states.
What today's relation between the nations, and is it very highly close to realism nowadays?
Yes, sir. I think it's very close to realism.
With everyone is self-centered.
Yes, sir. Everyone is self-centered, and we are majorly focused on our national interest. While
Okay.
nations like India, we try to balance our ideological concerns with our national interest. Yet, in today's highly competitive world, we are leaning more towards realism. So, be it the Russia-Ukraine crisis or how the US has been imposing tariffs on other nations just to secure its national interest, I think it's leaning towards realism.
How do you look at India's relation with its neighbors? Did they saw as India as a big brother and interfering or whatever?
Yes, sir. I believe that India's relations with its neighbors has not always been very pleasant, because from time to time, we tend to have certain issues with our neighbors. And one major reason for that, as you said, would be the big brother syndrome, or they are just afraid of India because of its size and the size of its economy. That could be one reason. Another reason that I see is that the very swift political changes, domestic political changes in these neighboring countries is also leading to a lot of fluctuations in our ties. Like, for example, when President Mohammad Muizu came to power in Maldives, he was vocal about an India out stance, but that is not really his stand today. We see that that has shifted, and now we have warm ties with Maldives, because Maldives has also realized its dependence on India, and India has also been continuously supporting Maldives in its development as well. So similarly, now in Bangladesh, we are having not so pleasant ties, but again, there is going to be elections in Bangladesh. So I think these internal domestic politics is also really affecting our international relations with these countries.
New education policy. Tamil
Yes, sir.
Nadu in state as a state, they say they don't totally agree with the new education policy.
Yes, sir.
Why? What is the main reason for that?
Sir, the major concern of Tamil Nadu state that I think is with the NEP is about the three language policy, where it says that one language has to be the mother tongue, another one would be English, and the third language would be another Indian language that should be taught to the students. But Tamil Nadu government's concern is that now, if one language is Tamil and one language is in English, the third language invariably ends up being Hindi, because we only have the resources to teach Hindi here in our country, and there's hardly any resource to teach any other language. So the Tamil Nadu government feels like that this is an indirect imposition of Hindi onto the states. And the question arises as to whether the North Indian states would be willing to learn Tamil or any other South Indian language as the third language, when there are no enough resources to teach these languages. While I consider this as a very valid agreement, very valid argument from the state government, I also believe that, sir, if we had to learn a third language, I think Hindi would be a very logical option to study, because if we had to work anywhere in India other than, say, Tamil Nadu, probably Hindi would be a more handy language to us. So if students had to learn a language, I think they can learn Hindi if they are interested. But that being said, sir, I'm sure that there should be no imposition, and any language that the kid wants to learn, it should be given an opportunity, and there should be free will as to which language they would choose to learn.
In future, with the era of AI technology and models coming up,
Yes,
language
sir.
might lose whether with the new technology another decade or so.
Yes, sir. Yes.
We can converse with any language and communicate
Yes, sir.
and
Yes,
understand
with Google
basically.
Translate, we can
If not
easily
communicate, at
understand
least
any language.
understand the
Yes, sir. Yes. So the third language per se might not be necessary
might
as well.
not
Yes.
necessary or not necessary is a separate thing. But learning language is an issue, is separate. But as a human being, we may not face the difficulties.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Harshida, you spoke about big brother syndrome
Yes, sir.
to our foreign policy with neighboring countries.
Yes, sir.
Big brother syndrome, when you say, would you like to mean that big brothers are not liked in the family? Or what is it?
No, sir, that's not what I meant. What I meant was that our smaller neighbors are threatened by the very size of India, and they end up playing the China card against us. Like they don't want to appear very close to India, so they also try to have balanced ties with China. So they believe that rather than getting very close to one large economy, they could have support from two large economies and gain benefits from both of them. So I believe that this is what our neighbors are trying to do.
No, when
And I don't believe that big brothers are disrespected in families, but they're just worried by the size of our economy as such, is what I
in
feel.
that
So.
case, the big brother is failing in its behavior, isn't it? It's not patronizing. It's
Yes, sir.
would you mean to say India, being the big brother, has failed in its duty in the sense that it's not patronizing or it's not caring for the weak neighbors or younger brothers?
Sir, I wouldn't say that we have failed in our duty. We have been trying our level best, and especially in recent times, we have also made excessive changes in our policy. Especially when we altered our friendship treaty with Bhutan, this was a specific clause where we wouldn't treat Bhutan as someone who needs our help. Rather, we would treat them as equal neighbors, as equal partners. So we are making cautious efforts to make such changes, and I think we are also vocalizing these changes, and I'm sure we will see the change, sir. But as I said, there are other factors as well. It is also their internal domestic politics that makes them take such decisions, and it is not just our fault. And I don't think we have done anything in specific to make them worried like that.
Yeah, we have not done anything specific negatively, but basically positively, we are not able to get them on board with us. Would
Yes, sir.
you think?
Yes, sir. One of the major challenges is that we have our own economic concerns when compared to China. The pace at which China is able to help these countries and the pace at which they are able to deliver economic development in these countries, we have not been able to do that. Be it the case with Bhutan, where a lot of our hydroelectric projects are being stalled. So these countries are also worried about the excess cost that is being put on these projects, and why we are not able to see the results for all these economic deals that they have signed with India. So I believe that from India's side, there needs to be strong efforts to actually deliver all these projects on time so that we don't delay and make extra cost over time.
So, any specific reference to Bhutan-India relationship in the recent past? Has it deteriorated to some extent, or we have been maintaining status quo?
Sir, I think we have been maintaining status quo even after the Doklam standoff. I believe that Bhutan has not entirely given way to China. They have still had close ties with India, and we are still dealing with China in a cooperative manner. And I believe that we are maintaining status quo, sir.
Okay. You come from Kerala, and
Yes, sir.
it has a rich tradition of tourism and literacy, higher literacy level, and economic.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What primary region you think are contributing to this?
Sir, one of the major reasons for the success of Kerala's tourism sector would be the kind of branding that Kerala did in the 1990s, where it branded itself as the God's own country. And there was immense push from the government to push Kerala for its natural beauty and push it as a major tourist destination. I think that initial branding really worked. Another thing is that has very limited scope in economic expansion, because it is not really possible to expand industries in Kerala because of the very terrain of that state. So it ended up focusing more on the tourism industry as a major service industry, and because of its varied geographical um, um, beauty and natural beauty, I think it has really developed its tourism sector in that sense. And because, as you said, there has been a prevalence of high literacy, it is also easier for people to act as tourist guides, or be it auto drivers or taxi drivers. It's very easy for them to communicate and connect with the tourists as well. I think these things have worked out in Kerala's favor.
No, but with the influx of tourists coming in, I mean, you talked about God's own country, that branding part is all right. But every place faces a situation where if there is large influx of people coming in, the infrastructure is not able to sustain. How did Kerala manage it?
Sir, I'm not really aware of the specifics, but I also believe that in recent years, Kerala has been seeing a dip in its tourist numbers. So I think there is a lot more scope for Kerala to improve on its tourism, and there's a need for rebranding the state, because, as I said, the initial branding was in 1990s. There is a need to rebrand the state, and about how it managed the tourist influx, I'm not aware of the specifics.
Okay. Now, Kerala governor and the political executives, they had lots of differences in the past, and it went up to the Supreme Court also.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of the entire situation?
Sir, I'm not aware of the specifics, but I think it's very similar to Tamil Nadu's case, where the governor did sit on a few bills, and regarding the chancellorship of the university. I think those are the major changes. I think I'm not aware of the specifics, sir.
When Mr. Arif Muhammad Khan had lots of issues with the Kerala government,
Yes, sir.
you're not aware of the specifics?
Yes, sir. I'm not aware of the specifics, sir.
Okay. What do you think of governor as an institution? Is it a necessary evil in the Constitution of India, or it should be done
Sir,
away with?
yes, sir. I think the post of governor is necessary, and I don't consider it as an evil, sir, because I believe that at the end of the day, it's a constitutional post that is meant to be a link between the center and state, which is very crucial in a federal governance model like us. And the governor is not acting as the center's representative; rather, he is representing the people of the state. So I believe that it is a very necessary post, and it is very crucial to maintain a balance and to ensure and act as a final check that the state doesn't pass any rash decisions. At the same time, he is also the link between the center and the state, and I think it's a very necessary post, sir. I
But
don't consider it as an
we
evil.
have to have a link between the center and the state. Why can't the center and the state communicate directly?
So the center and state can communicate directly, of course, in other areas, say the GST Council, everywhere the states are communicating directly. But I think governor can also be like an additional link. I think since he's appointed by the center, he might probably have more warm ties with the center, even if a different party is ruling. He can act as a shock absorber or a mediator, and he can really ensure that both these center and state governments can have warm ties.
So, for communication, like we two are communicating now, if there will be somebody who would be interpreting our communication, would you mind that?
Sir, I wouldn't mind, provided the interpreter is easing our conversation.
Okay. So basically, you got to be very clear whether governor is really playing some important role as per the constitution, or in future there is a possibility that the post of governor should be abolished and it can still manage. It's just a hypothetical question, but the role
Yes,
so
sir.
far, if you can analyze with reference to the Supreme Court decision,
Yes, sir.
I think. Now, my last question to you.
Yes, sir.
The chemical engineer,
Yes, sir.
do you think uh, India being such a vast country, we should be depending on other countries for our industries for chemical and fertilizers? or we should have enough and we should be exporting more and more?
Sir, as you said, our dependence in chemical sector, especially the fertilizer sector, is huge and it is not very sustainable in the long run. And I believe that we should either diversify our imports, and at the same time, we should also try and explore local options and reduce our dependence. I am not really aware if we can become a fertilizer exporter in the long term, but at least we should be able to meet our internal needs, and I think that will be more sustainable in the long run. And in other sectors, say the APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients for our pharmaceutical sector is also entirely dependent on China, which is also again not healthy, I guess. I think at least in these sectors, I think we can locally produce, and we will be able to become self-sufficient in future, provided we provide the necessary incentives and impetus at the right time.
You gave a very ideal type response, but basically why we are not doing it? What is the problem?
Sir, if we consider exploration of critical minerals, it is still very low in our country, sir. This is one major reason why we are still dependent on global imports for our critical minerals. We need to focus more on our domestic exploration, and we need to also upgrade our technology for actually processing these minerals, because despite being the world's fifth largest reserve for rare earths, we hardly produce any rare earth minerals because of the high cost involved in the technology. So I think we should focus on getting the right technology or developing the right technology, and then focus on the exploration of these minerals.
So we could do quite a lot in chemical engineering, but for the people like you who would be migrating to civil services, would that be a loss for the discipline of chemical engineering, would you say?
Sir, I wouldn't really consider it a loss, because I think even as a civil servant, my chemical engineering skills will be put to use, because again, if as a civil servant, I will be making policy decisions at a larger level, and I will probably be able to put these skills to use in drafting such policies which will ensure that these minerals are being explored and developed within our country. So I think at a larger level, I'll be able to use these skills, sir. And I'm sure that with the scale of amount of engineers that we produce in our country, if we create more jobs, I'm sure a lot of them will stay back here and they will be able to contribute to this sector, sir.
Okay, that's all from us.